let's engine swap our vintage EEE buggy. I picked this thing up for $650 last year. Then I got it running and promptly blew a hole in the piston. If you haven't seen the other parts of this series, go check it out. It's crazy. I ran into the house, blew a hole in the piston. It wasn't a good time. I found a 600cc fuel injected 2-stroke snowmobile engine, and today we're going to try to get that running so we can put it in this kart. What we got here is an Arctic Suzuki 600cc fuel injected snowmobile engine. I picked this thing up from a wrecked snowmobile for $100, and coincidentally this thing has about 100 horsepower, which is going to absolutely rip on that EEE buggy. If you want to help support builds like this, go check out our merch. It does help fund projects so that we can build cool stuff and you guys can enjoy the content. Let's get this thing scooting. I did zero preparation on putting this thing together or connecting any of the wiring. However, I'm gonna just hope that all of these clip leads were hooked up together and all these clips go where they're supposed to be, and we're gonna check for spark. Come over here, get your peepers on the spark plugs. Hopefully you can see that okay enough. Alright, no spark yet. Too freaking easy. We already got spark. I was able to jump the black and white wire and the red wire with a clip lead. I'm guessing these go to the on-off switch that would have been on the handlebars of the snowmobile. We've got some juicy spark. Let's get this thing clamped down. Alright, let's get sketchy. You already know what's next. We got some stable starting fluid, and before you get all your panties in a bunch or get a bunch of panties, whatever, this has upper cylinder lube, so it'll be fine. I'm not going to go crazy because I don't want this thing launching off to Timbuktu. I also don't know which of these coil wires goes to which cylinder. Well, we'll send it anyways. Say your prayer. Here we go. That and see what happens. Yeah! She's running. I'm sure that did no damage to the cylinders, pistons, or engine as a whole, so take that. Alright, here's a look at what we got going on. This is the old engine. This is a FL250 Honda Odyssey Super Case with a Kawasaki Takate overboard cylinder. We got twice the cylinders and triple the fun, but we got to figure out how to fit that big thing into this space. Well, I was trying to get this sat in there just to kind of see how it'll fit, and got it a little stuck here, so I'm having to take off some more parts. So far I took off the starter solenoid from the old engine, the water pump from the old engine, because this one has a water pump built into it, and I still need to take off a few more things. I'm going to try to use the drive clutch from the old engine and put it on this new engine, so I can still use the old pulley over here and the old belt. Well, I just spent way too much time just to see if this even remotely fits in here. It does, but there is not a lot of room. I think I'm gonna have to take off the existing Honda Odyssey engine bracket and just build a completely new one. We got this. Alright, I chopped off the 2 tabs that were sitting right here and kind of blocking my way. Now there's so much more room for activities. I could have a freaking pool party down here now. And I'm going to put this here because what we're going to do is build a bracket up and over the fuel tank. Let's see how the engine sits in here now. I check it out. We got it sitting there pretty good. Obviously pulleys aren't lined up, but it is going to fit. I think with the engine slightly angled this way, we'll have enough room for the fuel injectors, even the air box if we decide to put that whole thing on. And then with it angled down like that, the exhaust has a little bit more room to swoop down and come back out the side. Well, unsurprisingly, I failed to prepare for this moment of getting the engine into the buggy, even though I had loads and loads of time to wait. But I need to get this clutch off. I don't have another one. This thing is missing parts, and that's on me. We're in the process of swapping a 600cc Arctic fuel injected engine onto this EEE buggy, and today we're going to work on building a bracket so we can mount the engine. Alright, so this engine with this gas tank is just not going to work. There's not enough room here. Come look. Gas tank is just sitting up way too high. There's not enough room for the exhaust. I do have room for intake, air box, etc. But I think the only way around this is to take the fuel tank off, and then we'll have to figure out another fuel tank later. Well, there you have it. Too easy. Alright, unfortunately there is very little room for this, so I'm going to have to chop this exhaust and modify it a bit so that I think it can, I'm going to have it angle and come out this gap here. Maybe the exhaust can sit up here. Because it's a fuel injected engine, the engine can sit at a 45-degree angle and still perform well. Man, this is quite the project. Sure wish I had a brother to help me. Well, this is becoming quite the little project for a guy like myself. There's a lot to consider as I swap this engine in, such as pulley spacing, pulley alignment, how to line it up, and on top of that, where to put the exhaust. If I cut too much off of the exhaust and the expansion chamber, then that will change the power band and change the tuning of the engine. I can't have too aggressive of an angle on the engine, even though it is fuel injected. I don't want it to be too crazy. We have the drive pulley moving inwards, it clamps inwards, and then this inner plate on this pulley also moves inwards, so the belt's moving that way here, and on this one the belt's moving this way. According to ChatGPT, I need to line up this pulley with the center line of this pulley, and yeah, a brother to help sure would be nice, or someone who's done this before. But here's to trying new things that I've never done before. Never snowmobile swapped a thing before. Alright, I got this nice aluminum plate that was from a different snowmobile engine I had. That's going to make mounting this engine to the frame much easier. So I'm going to get this in here now, show you how easy it is to get this in and out, because I've done it about 6 times. And Well, I've been knackering on this thing all day and I feel like I've gotten nothing done. Turns out, fabricating something you've never done before takes a little bit of problem solving and takes a little bit of time. But that's okay. You guys better watch out. The brain is firing on all cylinders today. I just moved the buggy from the sun to the shade so I can work more comfortably. So who knows what else I can accomplish today when the brain's working like that. I just had to go to Home Creepo after I already went to the welding store to get a hose and came home. Got some angle iron. I think this will be nice for bolting onto hither. Check it out. We got this nice bracket built up. We have a bicycle style groove here that the engine will lock down into. This piece of angle iron is bolted to the engine plate. We got rubber engine mounts there. Now I just need to build the other side and bolt down the front. Alright, I had to get a quick shot of this before I cover it all up. I got a nice nut welded down to the base plate, and then the engine mounts thread down in there, which means I can adjust the height if I need to. Holy smokes, there's a lot of junk out here. Well, she's all welded in, and I'm actually very happy with this. I think it looks decent. I think it looks a lot better than the square tubing that I was going to use. Also, I didn't mention that I chopped up an entire Harley Ermachi motorcycle frame in order to get these pieces. So, sorry to that Ermachi, rest in peace. This buggy is now part Harley. But, we kept some of the nice lines of the buggy. This has a nice swoop down here. We got all the rubber walls and grommets. And basically the last thing I need to do is fabricate up this exhaust pipe, and then we'll be piping till our heart's content. This is one big sausage that we're trying to jam in there. It's close, but I think we're gonna need to extend the curved portion at the beginning so that we can get this a little bit farther out. And before you start screeching at me and getting a bunch of panties, I know this is going to affect the tuning of this engine, but you know what also does affect tuning? Not having an exhaust at all. So we're just gonna have to deal with it and suffer the consequences later. I'm thinking if I extend that middle section and then scoot this forward, I think that may just give us enough room. Also, how do we feel about the old gas tank mounted on top there? I understand the radiator needs to flow, but the radiator is already half blocked by stuff anyways, and I think it just might work. This strip screw is an example of why everything takes longer. I need to move this seat so I can better weld up the exhaust, but the screws holding the seat on are seized and now stripped. And even with an easy out, they're just not coming out. Now we're talking. Alright, here's what we're working with down here. Just kind of putting pieces together. I gotta make this corner and then come up out of the frame. We're getting the exhaust all mounted up. I'm on the last section. I just got to cut this last piece to fit. Then I can weld this exhaust in and it's never coming out ever again. Holy hot tamales, boys. Check out this monstrosity. Oh, baby. We got clearance. Honestly, I ain't too mad about this. It, looks pretty good-ish. We're clearing all the things we need to. I'm embarrassed to say how much time I actually spent just welding this thing up. It looks like a frickin' Frankenstein, but it fits in there. I can slide it in from the seat side. Not too bad. Look at these welds. The brain. The brain. Alright, here's the first test drive. My neighbor is watching, so no pressure. But if I blow my arms off, at least I have a witness. A little bit of lube. No coolant hooked up, because who needs that? Well, we're freaking scooting and tooting. Now it's time to move forward and hook up some other things. I'm not going to permanently attach anything at the moment because I'm feeling non-committal, just like your girlfriend. Alright, this is a fine-tuned racing machine. That's why we're running it with no coolant and a very precise makes a 2-stroke oil. That looks about like 50 to 50. Hold on to your britches, folks, because now is the time is now. We are going to get this thing started. We have no coolant. Overrated. We have done minimal planning. This pet cock seems to be on backwards, but turn it on and let's see what happens. My safety plan is to cover this with my hands or try turning off the key. Let's go. Thing's a little wobbly. And tippy. Alright, we have fuel coming out there. Now that we squirted gas everywhere, let's go. Come on. A little bit. Well, I dribbled in there. Hot diggity. Probably not getting enough fuel pressure either. Dang it. Well, at least it didn't retract all the way in. Alright, these old vintage air shocks in the front are leaking, and today we're going to swap them out for these MP front shocks. Hopefully they're the right length. Let's get into it. Whoopsies. Alright, well, sorry about that. Just launched you guys to Timbuktu. I think that'll go in there nicely. Got a little pin. Just got to get a, well, oh no. That's not going to fit down there. This is also looking really long. Well, unfortunately, it's looking a little bit long, which isn't something I hear often, but we're going to put the other one on the other side and see if that makes it any better. We're already kind of hitting the frame here on our front A arm, but I'm hoping that once I have weight, my big chungus in here, it'll spring these down and it'll be better. Alright, these shocks are looking absolutely sick, and I think with me in the buggy like this, I think that's pretty solid. You guys let me know what you think of the camber of the wheels, caster, camber, castration angle of those wheels. I think it's pretty solid. Got enough spring on there to where they look to be close to 90 degrees when I'm sitting in it. So as it extends, it'll be good, and then there's still some compression length in there. I can extend these on the notches as well. Alright, we're continuing to make progress. I'm getting rid of wires, switches, all the unnecessary tiddlywinks. I was going to put this new aluminum fuel tank in the rear, but there's not really a good spot for it, and it'd be close to that ripping hot exhaust. So I'm actually going to cut out some metal down here and get this mounted in the front, and the hood should be able to still go over the top. So let's get this cleaned up and mounted in here. Check it out. Boom. I think it looks pretty dang good. Alright, so now that the fuel tank is super far away from the fuel injectors, we are going to hook up our fuel pump and run fuel line from here all the way back to the back of the cart. I believe the fuel pump needs to be as close as it can to the fuel tank, and we'll see what happens. I have spent way too much time trying to figure out which one of these outlets and inlets go to what on this engine and buggy and fuel tank. It is a huge pain, but I think I figured it out. And before you say, why didn't you just use the fuel pump from the snowmobile? This is why. Because this big chungus sat all the way down in the fuel tank on the thing, and I couldn't do that with this. So what we got here, I believe this is correct. This is the pulse pump. This will connect vacuum line to the crankcase. This is the fuel inlet from the fuel tank. And then both of these are outlets. I can probably cap one of them. I'm not sure if I can connect the, because one of these will go to the fuel inlet on the fuel rail. There's another outlet on the fuel rail, and I don't know if that's an overflow and if that needs to come back to here or if I can send it back to here. But we're getting close. A lot of problem solving when you're getting something rigged to Jerry. Alright, well, I freaking lied. I still haven't figured anything out. There are just hoses and connections galore, and it's really starting to tick me off. I'm kind of doing coolant lines, kind of doing fuel lines. I can't seem to find a vacuum line to hook up to our fuel pump. The vacuum line may be on the air box, but I don't see any crankcase breather vacuum lines. Sure wish I had a brother to help me problem solve this. Alright, I think I finally figured it out after looking through dozens of forums, searching way too many things on ChatGPT. I figured out that this engine, which is my spare, same thing as over there, does not have a impulse line outlet or inlet on the block, because these are for fuel injection. This is a electronic fuel pump that was on it. I'm putting in a impulse vacuum fuel pump. So come on, this right here is a direct line into the block. So what I can do is find a nipple that will fit in there, and then I can hook that up to my vacuum fuel line on the fuel pump, and then I should be good. So here's the deal. I'm just about done for the night, so I just hooked everything up temporarily, but I do have the fuel pump hooked up. Alright, just splashed some more fuel into the throttle bodies, and I made sure fuel was coming out of the hose here. Let's see if she'll go. Still don't know if that was the fuel in there or not, but she's fixed for now. Just added 35 horsepower with these pod filters. Now let's see if it starts. Sounds like it wants to go. It's just playing hard to get. Alright, I can't take credit for all this jerry rigging, but I did get the gas pedal and oil pump set up. Go take a look at it from the rear. Look at this wiggle in action. I'm just tickled pink. Alright, so for now, I'm just going to go ahead and mount the fuel pump back here. Is this appropriate? Will it work? I still have no idea. We're on to coolant now. So if my understanding is correct, which there's a good chance it's not, the top part of the radiator goes to the head of the ZR600, and the water pump side of the engine goes to the bottom. I think that's how it works. Alright, before we get everything too hooked up, we're going to do a radiator flush. Alright, we freaking did it. Everything's hooked up. All the hoses are hooked up. There's not too many kinky lines. I even hooked up the drain, coolant drain at the bottom. I don't know how I feel about all this wiring mess overall, wiring, hoses, but the two big pod filters should cover that up nicely. So basically, we're gonna put some fuel in this thing now and see what she'll do. If I need to put an inline electric fuel pump to get it to the fuel pump down there, I will, but let's freaking send it. We got our fluids filled up and we're ready to rip. Cleared out out a nice pathway here in case this thing launches forward, but should be good to go. Turn on the key. Gonna have to probably pull it quite a few times to, because the fuel pump's probably gonna be cavitated. But let's get yanking and see what happens. Alright, attempt number 2. I made sure I had fuel all the way to the fuel pump. I think she's gonna go. It's looking pretty mean from back here, I will say that. It's not quite wanting to do anything. Well, the only thing that seems to get this thing to start is starting fluid. I know this isn't good for this engine, but I'm desperate at this point. It moved! Yes! My kill switch wires came off at the most inopportune time, so that's what happened there. But let's see if she'll start back up again without starting fluid. Yes! We freaking did it! This is probably one of the more extensive engineering build projects that I have done, and it runs and it moved on its own a little bit, not when I wanted it to, but that's okay. Wow. Also, have I mentioned that this thing has more horsepower than my brother's Orange International L160 truck? I wonder how the neighborhood feels about me right about now. Holy smokes. This thing is so loud that the phone and camera can barely pick up the amount of decibels on here. One of the last safety measures I want to fix before taking it on a test drive is the brakes. These are mechanical brakes right now, and they do not work. I got this beauty of a hydraulic brake kit, and we're gonna see first if it even reaches. And right out of the gate, I'm a little nervous. Alright, here's what we're working with. I think I'm going to be able to mount the caliper here, run this line somewhere here to avoid all the stuff so I either don't get cooked in the exhaust, wrapped up in this, wrapped up in the springs, caught in the clutch. But I think something like that should be fine. Alright, we got this nice bracket cut. This is threaded into the caliper. Now the caliper can slide on there. I'm gonna weld this end of this bracket to this, and then fold over a piece and weld it to here. Well, I was feeling pretty good about my brake setup in there, and then I went to put my foot on the pedal and realized I set the whole thing up backwards. This is supposed to move that way, the pedal's moving that way, so now I have to wriggle up some sort of cantilever that will pivot as I push. Well, you guys were right. I do need an electric fuel pump on this thing. I went to start it yesterday and the fuel just wasn't priming to the fuel pump. And then I realized I can use this still. This is essentially an inline fuel pump that sat inside the tank, but I can take this center part out and still use the wiring in its correct configuration. And we'll put this somewhere in line in here and we'll be scooting. Now when I push this, it also pushes the master cylinder and compresses the calipers in the rear. I also wriggled up this masterpiece down here, inline fuel filter, electric fuel pump, wired to where the electric fuel pump went before. Now no more junky vacuum fuel pump. I capped the hole in the case, and now the electric fuel pump runs all the way to the fuel rail. I do still need to put another hose on the regulator, but this thing is I think just about ready for a test trip. Still very interesting that the fuel pump doesn't need a battery. The snowmobile was a battery-less system, so the headlights worked and the fuel pump worked without a battery. Alright, we freaking did it. Everything is hooked up. The brakes are hooked up. The throttle cable's hooked up. The return line from the fuel rail is hooked up. The wires going from the fuel pump to the engine are hooked up. We are ready for the first attempted start with the new setup. Hopefully this works better than the way I had it before. Let's get to it. Psych. The exhaust is rubbing. It's gonna take a sec to pull fuel, but here we go. Oh, we got smoke rings. Yippee-ki-yay! That's a little bit more bearable of a decibel level. I think we're ready to test this thing out. Alright, we got Tim on the camera. It's time for the first test drive of the EEE Buggy.
Okay, don't kill yourself. Or me.
Holy smokes.
That run good?
The front end came off the ground coming downhill. We freaking did it. I'm just tickled pink with this thing. It's terrifying. I'm afraid of this buggy because of how the belt is, because the belt's a little bit too narrow. the clutch has to get up into a higher RPM before it engages, and so once it grabs, it just takes off. This thing is so torquey and fast that I got the front wheels off of the ground. This buggy is literally doing wheelies. I'll be able to look at the GoPro footage later to see how fast I went. I just took it on a short ride, and then the seat warmers kicked in. So that's what I have to do now, is wrap the exhaust, put up some heat shields from the exhaust to the engine, and make sure everything's kind of protected a little better. And then we'll put the rest of the panels on, and who knows what's next. I don't even know. We probably should take this somewhere cool. Maybe we'll finish the dune buggy someday too, and we'll take both of these out. Also, she's officially fixed for now. Go check out our merch if you haven't already. It does help support crazy builds like this. Love ya.
He's skimming. Look at those front tires. Your front tires are just skimming. He is scooting. He's gonna overshoot one of these turns and go right into those blackberry bushes. Look at those tires. Boys, we've got a ripper. About launched into the blackberry bushes a few times.
I think our course is a little bit small.
Look at those front tires.
Ugh.
Uh-oh. We broke it. Well, I let Levi drive it one time and he snapped the wheel off. What do you have to say for yourself?
How many holes are in that wheel there?
I think that is the wheel that I broke when I hit my house.
I couldn't tell if it was like a golf ball rattling around.
Oh no.
Sorry.
Well, we freaking did it. This thing is ripping and skipping, and I'm sure it's pissing off everyone in the neighborhood, but that's just what we designed it to be. Not too shabby when you consider where Levi and I started with some of these engineering projects, but it's going good. This thing rips. I got a few more parts coming in, but that's all I'm going to do for this part of the series. I got to go work on the Mustang. If you liked what you saw, let me know. Maybe we'll snowmobile swap something else. But that's all we got for now. If you're not following us, go follow us on all the places. Love ya. Bye.